a Roman general commanding 1,000 soldiers, a Jewish teacher with no army. When the most powerful military officer in Galilee knelt before a carpenter from Nazareth, it shattered every assumption about authority, race, and faith. This is the story that amazed Jesus himself. His name was Marcus Longinus, though history would remember him simply as the Centurion. In 28 AD, he commanded the Roman garrison at Capernaum, controlling 800 square miles of Jewish territory with a century of battle-hardened legionnaires. You can picture him that morning, surveying the bustling fishing village from his fortress wall. At 45, Marcus had spent 27 years conquering peoples across 3 continents. His scarred hands bore the authority of Rome, yet something set him apart from other officers. Where colleagues saw subjugated populations to exploit, he saw human beings deserving dignity. Where others collected crushing taxes, he ensured fair treatment. Where typical centurions destroyed local religions, he'd actually contributed to Capernaum's synagogue expansion. "You're too soft on these Jews, Marcus," his lieutenant Gaius warned during patrol. "They mistake kindness for weakness." Marcus adjusted his red-crested helmet. "These people aren't our enemies, Gaius. They're farmers, fishermen, merchants. We're here to maintain peace, not wage war on civilians." This attitude earned Marcus unprecedented respect from local Jewish population. Synagogue leaders included him in prayers. Merchants offered fair prices. Children didn't flee when they saw his uniform. His most trusted household member was Eleazar, a 20-year-old Jewish administrator who managed correspondence, translated languages, and served as cultural interpreter between Roman policies and Jewish customs. "Master Marcus," Eleazar had said recently, "the people call you the righteous Gentile in synagogue. Rabbi Micah says, you understand our law better than some Jews." Marcus looked up from tax collection reports. "I've learned that authority without understanding breeds rebellion. These people have been conquered by Rome but not defeated. Their spirit, their faith, that's something our legions can't touch." While other garrisons faced constant uprisings, Capernaum remained peaceful. Trade flourished under Marcus's protection. The synagogue grew under his financial support. Disputes were resolved through collaboration between Roman law and Jewish custom. But Marcus wrestled with deeper questions. Why did some suffer while others prospered? What power governed human destiny beyond Roman authority? How could a career soldier find meaning beyond conquest and control? These questions intensified as reports reached him about Jesus from Nazareth. Unlike zealots preaching violent resistance, this teacher spoke of a kingdom that transcended political boundaries and military power. "Have you heard about this Nazarene rabbi?" Eleazar asked one evening. "Yesterday he healed a leper outside Bethsaida, not with medicine, but with a simple touch and command." Marcus set down his stylus, intrigued despite Roman skepticism. "Describe exactly what witnesses reported." "The man was leprous for 7 years, fingers missing, face disfigured. This Jesus touched him and said, 'Be clean.' Instantly, healthy skin replaced diseased flesh. Missing fingers regrew. The transformation was so complete, his family didn't recognize him." As a military man, Marcus evaluated evidence objectively. But reports about Jesus came from multiple independent sources, including Roman citizens whose testimony would be reliable in legal proceedings. More intriguing than miraculous claims were the principles Jesus taught. Unlike other Jewish teachers preaching ethnic superiority and Roman exclusion, Jesus spoke about universal love, authentic authority, and faith transcending cultural boundaries. Little did Marcus know that circumstances would soon compel him to seek this mysterious teacher personally, testing whether faith that conquered diseases could bridge the gap between conqueror and conquered. The crisis began when Eleazar didn't appear for dawn duties. Marcus found him burning with fever, his body racked by violent trembling that made speech impossible. "Since midnight, my lord," Sarah, his household manager, explained as she adjusted cool cloths on Eleazar's forehead. The fever came suddenly. Like lightning, Marcus knelt beside the wooden bed, studying Eleazar with clinical battlefield medicine knowledge. The young man's skin burned, his pulse raced, and his breathing grew labored. Most alarming, he couldn't move his legs. Paralysis was spreading upward with terrifying speed. Dr. Lucius arrived within hours. A graduate of Alexandria's medical school and veteran of military campaigns, he represented the pinnacle of Roman medical knowledge. The examination was thorough and grim. "Centurion, your servant suffers from ascending paralysis," Lucius explained. "The condition affects vital functions systematically, beginning with extremities and progressing toward heart and lungs. Mortality rate approaches 90%. Over following days, Marcus watched helplessly as paralysis climbed through Eleazar's body like an invisible predator. First, his legs became immobile. Then his hands lost strength. His voice grew weaker as chest muscles struggled. "Master Marcus," Eleazar whispered on the fourth day, voice barely audible, "promise you'll care for my family after I'm gone. My mother has no other support." Marcus gripped the paralyzed hand, fighting emotions that had no place in military protocol. "You're not dying, Eleazar. I won't allow it." But even as he spoke, Marcus knew his authority meant nothing against this force, claiming the young man's life. He commanded 100 soldiers, controlled vast territory, wielded Roman Empire power, yet was completely powerless to save the person who mattered most. By the 5th day, Dr. Lucius confirmed everyone's fears. "There's nothing more I can do. I've treated battlefield injuries, plague victims, cases that challenged everything I learned. But this is beyond medical intervention." The household staff maintained constant vigil. Sarah prepared special foods. Others read Hebrew scriptures, believing familiar words might comfort during final days. The scene resembled a death watch. Marcus found himself spending hours beside that bed, wrestling with questions military training never equipped him to answer. Why did good people suffer while evil prospered? What justice governed a world where disease claimed innocence? Where was divine mercy when human need was greatest? The Jewish elders asked about Eleazar. Sarah reported on the 5th day as paralysis reached chest muscles. They want to know if there's anything they can do. What could they possibly do that Roman medicine cannot? Marcus replied, frustration evident. Sarah hesitated. "They speak of the teacher from Nazareth, my lord. Jesus, the one who healed the centurion's servant in Jerusalem, lepers in Bethsaida, the paralytic in our own synagogue." Marcus had dismissed such stories as folklore. Roman military doctrine emphasized facts, evidence, rational analysis. Miracles belonged to superstition and wishful thinking. But watching Eleazar's increasingly desperate breathing, rationality offered no solutions. Medical science provided only grim mortality statistics. Roman authority commanded nothing that could reverse this death sentence. That evening, Marcus stood alone on his rooftop, staring across dark Galilee waters toward hills where rumors claimed Jesus conducted mysterious ministry. For the first time since joining the army at 18, he faced a problem military strategy couldn't solve, an enemy gladius swords couldn't defeat. Tomorrow would bring final medical examination. The paralysis had reached Eleazar's diaphragm. Without immediate divine intervention, the young man would die before another sunset. Perhaps it was time to consider possibilities beyond Roman logic. Perhaps it was time to seek the Jewish teacher who claimed authority over forces Roman medicine couldn't touch. Marcus found Jesus half a mile from Capernaum's outskirts, surrounded by the usual crowd. Even at distance, something about his presence was unmistakably different from other Jewish leaders Marcus had encountered. There was authority in his bearing, that didn't depend on elaborate robes or institutional backing. As Marcus approached, conversations died as people recognized the Roman centurion's distinctive uniform. Tension thickened. Occupying soldiers and occupied civilians rarely interacted except during enforcement actions. But Jesus continued walking steadily toward Marcus without hesitation. When they stood face to face on that dusty road, Marcus felt something he'd never experienced in 27 years of service. He was looking into eyes of someone whose authority genuinely exceeded his own. "Master," Marcus said, using the title reserved for superior officers, "I don't deserve to have you come under my roof. My servant is paralyzed, dying, suffering terribly, but you don't need to see him personally." The crowd grew silent, straining to hear this unprecedented conversation between Roman military power and Jewish spiritual authority. Marcus made his decision at dawn on the 6th day. Dr. Lucius confirmed what everyone knew. Eleazar had hours before respiratory failure claimed his life. "Send word to Rabbi Micah," Marcus commanded. "I need to speak with synagogue elders about Jesus of Nazareth." Within an hour, 3 elderly leaders arrived: Rabbi Micah, Simon the treasurer, and Jacob. They approached with careful respect, characterizing occupied people's relationships with military governors. "We need information about Jesus, not rumors, facts that can be verified," Marcus said. Rabbi Micah stroked his white beard. "What would you like to know?" "We've observed his ministry over a year, heard his teaching, witnessed healings that defy medical explanation." "Start with credentials. His background, training, authority?" Jacob leaned forward. "That's what makes him unusual. No formal rabbinic training, no medical education, no institutional authority from Jerusalem. He's a carpenter from Nazareth, a village barely mentioned in records." This troubled Marcus's military mind. In Roman culture, authority derived from institutions, credentials, hierarchical advancement. Self-appointed teachers claiming miraculous powers usually represented delusion or fraud. "Yet you believe his healing claims?" Simon nodded emphatically. "Last month, Jesus healed Jairus' daughter. The girl was clinically dead. We'd begun mourning, hired mourners, wrapped her for burial. Jesus took her hand and said, 'Little girl, arise.' She opened her eyes, sat up, asked for food. 30 witnesses, Centurion," Rabbi Micah added. "The entire household, mourners, neighbors. The girl is alive today, completely healthy." Marcus studied these men carefully. They weren't simple peasants prone to superstition. Rabbi Micah had studied in Jerusalem. Simon managed complex finances. Jacob owned profitable businesses. Their testimony carried weight. "Where can I find Jesus today?" "Teaching in hills above Bethsaida, about 6 miles north," Rabbi Micah replied. "But Centurion, strict law interpretation prohibits Jesus from entering your home or having direct contact. Such interaction would render him ceremonially unclean." This presented tactical problems Marcus hadn't anticipated. Roman protocol emphasized direct, personal negotiation. But Jewish law apparently prohibited the very meeting Eleazar's survival required. "However," Simon interjected, "there's precedent for long-distance healing. Jesus healed a royal official's son in Cana while the boy lay dying 15 miles away in Capernaum. The healing occurred exactly when Jesus spoke command." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Long-distance healing aligned with military understanding of authority and command structure. Generals didn't need physical presence to deploy troops. Properly transmitted orders achieved results across vast distances through established chains. "Would you approach Jesus on my behalf?" Marcus asked. The men consulted quietly in Hebrew. "Centurion," Rabbi Micah responded, "we would be honored. Your kindness to our community, your synagogue support, your fair treatment, these speak louder than words about your character." As elders prepared to depart for Bethsaida, Marcus returned to Eleazar's bedside. Paralysis had reached neck muscles. Speech was impossible, breathing increasingly desperate. Death was no longer approaching. It was completing its work. "Hold on, my boy," Marcus whispered, gripping motionless hand. "Help is coming. I don't understand how, but I believe help is coming." The elders returned 3 hours later, faces carrying news Marcus both wanted and feared to hear. "Jesus is coming," Rabbi Micah announced. When we explained Eleazar's condition, he immediately stopped teaching and began walking toward Capernaum. Marcus felt his breath catch. But as reality sank in, Jesus actually coming to his house, panic began overriding gratitude. Conservative Jews would condemn Jesus for entering a Gentile home. Roman authorities might interpret the meeting as seditious collaboration. More terrifying was the spiritual dimension. If Jesus truly possessed divine power, Marcus was about to host God's presence. How could a career soldier, stained with blood from military campaigns, welcome divine holiness? "This is wrong," Marcus said suddenly. "Jesus shouldn't come here. The risks are too great." But then illumination struck like lightning. Authority functioned identically, whether military or divine. Properly given commands produced results regardless of distance. If Jesus possessed divine authority over disease and death, physical proximity was irrelevant. "I need to stop him before he reaches the house," Marcus declared, striding toward the door with sudden determination. "Just say the word," Marcus continued, his voice carrying across the gathering, "and my servant will be healed. I know how authority works. I'm under authority myself. With superiors, I must obey. But I also have soldiers under my authority. When I tell one to go, he goes. When I tell another to come, he comes." Marcus gathered courage for words that would demonstrate either profound faith or complete foolishness. "You have that same authority over sickness and health, over life and death. You don't need physical presence any more than I need to personally supervise every soldier. Just speak the command, and disease will obey you the same way my soldiers obey me." Jesus studied Marcus's face with intensity that seemed to penetrate his very soul. Marcus felt simultaneously exposed and completely understood, judged and utterly accepted. Then Jesus turned to the crowd, his voice carrying clearly across the hillside. "I tell you the truth, I have never found such faith in all of Israel. This man understands something many of God's chosen people have missed. True authority doesn't depend on physical presence, cultural background, or religious credentials. It depends on recognition and submission to legitimate power." Jesus looked directly into Marcus's eyes. "Go home, Centurion. Your servant is healed." The 10-minute walk back felt like eternity. Each step carried Marcus between hope and terror, not knowing whether he'd find Eleazar alive or dead. As he approached his courtyard, he could hear voices, not hushed, mournful tones that had characterized recent days, but animated conversation that sounded celebratory. Sarah appeared in the doorway, her face radiant with joy. "Master Marcus, come quickly. Something wonderful has happened." Marcus broke into a run, his dignity forgotten. He burst through Eleazar's door, expecting either corpse or dying man struggling for final breaths. Instead, Eleazar was sitting upright, color returned, speaking animatedly with Dr. Lucius, who appeared professionally shocked. When Eleazar saw Marcus, he attempted to rise. "Master Marcus," Eleazar called out, voice strong and clear. "I'm completely healed. The paralysis is gone, fever broke. I can move everything normally." Dr. Lucius turned with bewilderment combining with fascination. "Centurion, I've examined your servant thoroughly. Every symptom indicating terminal paralysis has completely disappeared. His reflexes are normal, muscle strength restored, respiratory function perfect. This recovery is medically impossible. Marcus sank into a chair, overwhelmed by emotions he couldn't process. Relief that Eleazar survived, amazement that Jesus' healing actually worked, and something approaching religious awe at witnessing divine intervention. "When did improvement begin?" Marcus asked. Sarah consulted her water clock. "About 15 minutes ago, Master." He was unconscious, barely breathing, when suddenly his eyes opened. He said, "Someone just commanded me to be well, and I must obey." Then he sat up, as if he'd never been sick. 15 minutes ago was exactly when Jesus spoke the words. Divine authority had operated with military precision across miles of countryside. Over the following hour, Dr. Lucius conducted the most thorough examination of his career, testing reflexes, measuring strength, evaluating cognitive function. His findings defied every medical principle. "There's no trace of disease," Lucius announced, hands trembling. "Not just improvement, complete eradication. Medically speaking, I'm observing resurrection rather than recovery." Word spread through Capernaum like wildfire. By evening, steady streams of visitors filled Marcus's villa. Synagogue leaders wanting first-hand accounts, neighbors who'd helped care for Eleazar, physicians who couldn't believe reports. For Marcus, the most profound transformation wasn't Eleazar's physical healing. It was his own spiritual awakening. The Roman centurion who'd built identity on military achievement had discovered higher authority that made earthly power seem insignificant. The centurion whose faith had amazed Jesus was beginning to understand that he'd witnessed something that would change not just his life, but the course of human history. 6 months after Eleazar's healing, Marcus had become the most unusual Roman centurion in Palestinian history. His villa had evolved into something unprecedented, a meeting place where Romans, Jews, Syrians, and Greeks gathered to discuss divine authority that transcended cultural boundaries. "Master," Eleazar observed one evening, "you've changed more than I have since my healing. The paralysis that left my body seems to have left your heart as well." Marcus understood exactly what Eleazar meant. For 27 years, his heart had been paralyzed by military conditioning, emphasizing conquest over compassion, control over service. Jesus' demonstration of divine authority had healed emotional wounds Marcus hadn't recognized existed. "I've been thinking about leadership differently," Marcus admitted. "Roman training taught me authority comes from power to punish and dominate. But Jesus showed me true authority comes from power to heal and restore. The strongest leaders serve others." This transformed understanding had practical consequences. His troops noticed discipline maintained through inspiration rather than intimidation. Civilians experienced Roman administration as protection rather than oppression. Military operations were conducted with unprecedented concern for innocent people. Dr. Lucius, now a regular visitor, brought reports reflecting broader regional changes. Centurion. Physicians throughout the empire are discussing Jesus' healing ministry. If prayer and faith can reverse terminal conditions, our entire approach to healing might need revision. The theological implications were equally revolutionary. Marcus had grown up believing gods were distant, capricious beings requiring elaborate rituals. But Jesus revealed divine character operating through mercy, exceeding justice, love including enemies, power that healed rather than harmed. "I've been studying Hebrew scriptures with Rabbi Micah," Marcus told Eleazar as they walked through Capernaum's marketplace. "The Jewish concept of God is fascinating. Not competing deities, but one supreme authority who created everything and loves everyone." "What surprises you most?" Eleazar asked. Marcus paused beside a fountain where children played while mothers drew water. "I've learned that divine love doesn't depend on ethnic identity, social status, or religious credentials. The same God who chose Abraham also healed my Gentile servant through faith that amazed Jesus. Divine grace crosses every human boundary. This realization profoundly affected Marcus's understanding of Roman policy. If God loved all people equally, then political systems oppressing some to benefit others contradicted divine will. Marcus wasn't becoming politically revolutionary. He continued fulfilling military duties, maintaining order, collecting taxes, but his motivations had changed completely. Instead of serving Rome through fear of punishment, he served because good government could reflect divine justice and mercy. The governor's office has received commendations about your administration, Lieutenant Gaius reported. Capernaum has the lowest crime rate, highest tax compliance, and best Jewish-Roman relations in Palestine. Pilate wants to know your methods. Marcus smiled at the irony. His most effective leadership resulted from applying principles learned from a Jewish carpenter who'd never commanded armies or conquered territories. Jesus' servant leadership had made Marcus a better Roman officer than 27 years of training achieved. As the first anniversary of Eleazar's healing approached, Marcus reflected on his complete worldview transformation. The centurion who'd found meaning through conquest now found purpose through service. The commander who'd maintained loyalty through fear now inspired dedication through love. I understand now why Jesus called this the kingdom of heaven, Marcus confided to Rabbi Micah. It's not about overthrowing governments or establishing new political systems. It's about transforming hearts so every human relationship reflects divine character. Rabbi Micah nodded thoughtfully. The Messiah's kingdom operates through changed lives rather than changed laws, moral authority rather than military force. You've become an example of what happens when Roman power serves divine purposes. Most remarkably, his encounter with Jesus had made him both a better Roman and better human being. Divine authority didn't diminish human authority when properly understood. It purified human authority, so earthly powers served heavenly purposes. Marcus Longinus was discovering that his transformation represented just the beginning of changes that would reshape the Roman Empire and alter human civilization. The faith that had begun with desperate need for medical intervention was becoming foundation for new understanding of authority, power, and relationships. Years later, when Luke interviewed him for the gospel record, Marcus would summarize his transformation simply. I recognized authority when I encountered it. Jesus possessed authority over life and death itself. Once I recognized that authority, submission was the only rational response. The centurion whose faith amazed Jesus was leaving a legacy, proving that divine grace could transform any life completely when met with authentic faith and humble obedience.